The People's Story. My name is Charlotte Hindley and I'm from the Soul Archive. And today we have a very special guest who is a soul connoisseur and Northern Soul DJ, Guy Hennigan. So thank you so much for joining us today, Guy. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well, and thanks for inviting me.
No, it's honestly, we're super excited to have you today because you're just a wealth of knowledge on soul music. So let's start. What I'd really like to do is go through a journey with you, Guy. I'd really like to start from the beginning of like where you came from and how you grew up, and then just go through all of those like pivotal moments on your Northern soul journey until now.
Yeah, go on then. Yeah, this might last a few hours.
Okay, so for now, let's just ask you a bit of a warm-up question. How are you coping through the pandemic? Are you doing okay?
Well, I'm in Cambodia at the moment, and up until 2 weeks ago, there was only been 400 cases logged in the whole year. Until a couple of Chinese up in one of the lockdown hotels, one of the quarantine hotels for new arrivals, bribed a security guard and went on partying when they were covering it up around Phnom Penh, starting off with a couple of Chinese call girls. Since then, it's just blossomed, and there's about 400 or 500 new cases. They locked down one town itself, Sihanoukville, and part of Phnom Penh. All the bars are closed in Phnom Penh and things like that. So, but here in Kampot, where I am, it's sort of business as usual. You just try and wear a mask a little bit just to keep people sweet, so that everybody sees that you're trying to, whatever. But anything beyond that, no, nothing whatsoever.
Oh, well,
so it's been great.
Well, it seems great for you, and hopefully they keep that contained in that particular town. Okay, so let's start off with your early life. Tell us where you're from. Tell me what you was like as a young person.
Skipton, Yorkshire, originally. I left there in about 1979. But my early years were all born and bred in Skipton.
So you're a Leeds fan, are you?
I am, yeah. And follow them home and away when I can. Your
early influences of music, was it from the start? Was it soul music, or how did you get to soul?
Well, my sister used to go to the wheel, so she had a few spool tapes. The big spool tapes, equivalent to what you have, 1/4 inch behind you there. And she had a spool tape machine, and then one of her boyfriends had done a load of records on there. And so I was listening to fantastic stuff, by the Artistics, James and Bobby Purify, Motown stuff, Capitals. I was listening to all those things when I was about 11 years old. And also the chap across, my nearest neighbour across the road was a big face on the scene at the time. One of the first lads to go to America for records, a chap called Franny O'Brien, whose nickname was Fran Francisco. And so when I was about 12, when Franny went out for the weekend, Friday night, I'd sometimes bribe his little brother, to bring me his little record, a little record box over, and I'd be playing his records while he was out, at the weekend. So I was listening to, great records, classic Northern Soul things when I was 12 years old, so that was in 1969. So 1969, 70. So yeah, I had access to great records and the vinyl from a very, very young age.
That's just incredible that you had that passion for soul music at such a young age.
It was the style as well, Charlotte. The thing is, my sister used to go out. She was a smart dresser. She once slapped me around the head when she asked me that, are you a mod or a rocker question? So I said, I think I was about 9 years old or something, or 10. And I said rocker. She slapped me around the head. And then she asked me again, and I said rocker, slapped me around the head. So I just said mod.
Oh, well, you've definitely been taught well, haven't you?
She's 5 years older than me, you see. So she's around for that that period. I should go into all-nighters. People didn't say around then, I think. It was just who was in the in crowd at the time. And there was a hotbed of support in my hometown. For 60s soul, or rare soul as it would have been called then, the rare soul scene. So I knew a lot of people who went to all-nighters when I was 12 years old, So And, from that, you got the style thing as well, So I was a skinhead, sort of 11 years old, as I said, and then moved into suede head, as you did, all these things, and then Crombie boy, brolly boy, boot boy, and everything else, because those changes in fashion really occurred really quickly, from one thing to another. I mean, skinhead itself, I think, started around 1966, even though people reckon it was later. But Les Cookel was the first, who was a big northern soul. He's dead now, it's Les. He was from Settle. He used to DJ at the Mecca when Levine used to go to the States. So he was heavyweight northern soul boy. And Les was one of the first skinheads up our way. I was told he was a skinhead in 66. So that whole thing sort of pulled together. There's a chap called Chris Brick, who was involved, let's say, on the northern scene in Wigan and earlier than that, but was also in the supply chain for certain commodities, and which I can't talk about because it was all looked after by the law at one time. But he coined a phrase that skinhead, suedehead, northern soul, holy trinity, and which I thought was absolutely bang on as a phrase. That's how you got into it. Skinhead, then suedehead, then got into northern soul.
I really, really like that phrase. And I was going to talk about that to you because you mentioned that in one of our previous chats. And I just think that is such a great term. I love it.
Phrase was, and I've since written down from another interview, which hasn't been published, but it was an interview which he did for the to do with the film and the book, to do with the film Northern Soul. It was that, but it's part of the thing which didn't go in the book. And he said, skinhead, suedehead, northern soul was the holy trinity. Anybody who didn't take that route got in by the back door. And I just sort of loved it. I thought it encompassed everything.
What do you mean? What do you mean by getting in by the back door?
Well, that was everybody else's route, and anybody else who didn't do that came in just by some other manner. But generally, sort of 90% of the people at the time, certainly all my mates from that period, all went through the same route. We're all skinheads as kids, then suedeheads, and then got into northern by whatever. But anybody else, just to sort of lay it out a bit more, most youth clubs, and certainly town youth clubs, not necessarily ones attached to church youth clubs, and youth clubs were big things back in sort of the late 60s and early 70s for kids, whether in towns or cities. The city ones tended to be, the town youth clubs run by the municipality, tended to be breeding grounds as well as fashion, but for access to the northern soul, because all the DJs, all the people who are passionate about the music, about any music, were the ones playing records at the local youth clubs, and they all were at the religious youth clubs. The ones attached to churches used to really be more to do with rock music and things like that. But the town youth clubs tended to follow the soul direction. So you could meet people through that as well, which you might not have met through school and things. So it was a direction. You had to choose to take it, but the direction option was always there from a young age. You knew about clubs. You knew about what was going on with the all-nighters, because everybody had older brothers and sisters. And just like, certainly for me and my mates, we all knew we were going to go to all-nighters eventually when we got to a certain age. It was just, that's what you do.
My generation, I know myself, I was introduced to this music through my parents, so it's got a bit of an uncool edge to it because of that. But, and at like 11 years of age, I think I was playing like Barbie dolls or something. I just...
11, 12, yeah.
What was everyone else doing? So people who didn't follow that path of Northern Soul and soul music and nighters, what was going on in the world, in the UK during that time?
If you talk politically, there was miners' strikes and things like that. But the kids were into what they were into. People tended to... Fashion was grassroots, a lot less contrived than it is these days, and put together by department stores and brands and things. So people followed fashion and kept a weather eye I mean, I'm talking about the cooler end of the kids, you know, who were around at the time, which I classify myself and my mates in, obviously. And the only other option, because you were polarised, the only other option, you're at, you know, it goes back to that mod or rocker question. You know, I into rock, I into soul, you know, I into pop, yeah, you know, sort of, I into mud, tiger feet, that, you know, that type of thing. And so you know, you just, it was almost natural. It was almost just a natural progression. I remember I was at school about 14 in school, and I'd be end of third year, as we called it then. So I'd be 14, going towards 15, or 14 and a half, something. And Leeds were playing in Stoke that weekend, playing away in Stoke, and I was going to go to the game. And two lads from they'd been the fifth year then, Kudjiku and Killer Catton, two lads' names, they came up to me once during, you know, when we were in Tabbers Corner, you know, sort of having a cigarette and at school, and came up and said, "You go to Stoke at the weekend?" And I said, yeah. And they said, "We're going down to the Torch, the Golden Torch," which I knew of and all that. She said, if you want to stick around, hang around after the match, we'll meet up with you and come to the all-nighter with us. And I said, no. I said, no, I'm not ready to start going to all-nighters yet. So I'll say I was 14 and a half, so I didn't, you know, so I didn't go. But it was just that easy access. There was nothing complicated about it at all. It was just, you know, no, I'm not ready to start going to all-nighters yet. Yeah, so I didn't go. I wish I had now to a certain extent, or a few years later I wished I had. But then I think, yeah, but with all the directions and all the distractions and the amount of police scrutiny there was all nighters at the time, you know, lots of bad things could have happened. You know, only good things for me, but you know, you're underage anyway, you know, and all it do, you know, all it done to get busted at an early age, and that would be it. You know, that would have all finished. So I said no.
I love that. I wish I was like that, just a bit more streetwise.
Yeah,
So,
you should never wish to have because you have such a good time in your own time, that to sort of drop into somebody else's time might have meant that you didn't have such a good time, or that your passion didn't develop in the same way as well. So I'm just thankful, you know, that I did it in a direction which suited me. And I was always in there, as my mate said a few years ago, Tim Finch. He said, me and you were always in there for the long haul. You know, I met his best mate, and I met him in 1974 at Wigan, early Wigan. And he said to me back in sort of the 90s or something, we were always in it for the long haul. You know, it wasn't a case of something that you were going to do for 6 months because it was fashionable. It was something that you knew you were going to follow right through to the nth degree, you know. So, yeah, but it was easy, and it was never a chore, Charlotte. It was never a chore.
Yeah, no, you can really see the passion, you know, rain out of you. It's lovely to see, because I hate that when you, especially when young people come on the scene, and then, you know, in a year or so they leave, and I just think, I don't understand it. I can't understand it in my brain.
Well, what happened, just to advance the story or the narrative quite a bit, is when Wigan Casino at the time obviously was number one all-nighter, and when they introduced the Friday night oldies nights, which I didn't like the idea of from the start, it allowed people who were going to all-nighters 2 or 3 times a month, or maybe you know, out for a whole weekend 2 or 3 times a month, just to dip a toe in the water once a month and pretend they're still on the scene, and an awful lot of sense, because I call that sort of dropping out. That isn't enough. You either do it, you got to do it properly, or don't do it at all. But they also, we're still on the scene with this, that, and the other. But they weren't. They were just the equivalent of divs, you know, sort of who went to an all-nighter, you know, once a month. I mean, you can't, and an all-nighter which isn't even playing any you know, breaking any new records. Nah.
No, I totally see this, and I've got a pretty similar mindset to that, because I call it part-timers. And that's my term for it. But I'm just really appreciative there are young people on the scene, you know, at least they're going out and support.
I think it's great the way it's developed recently, you know, with you know, yourself, Jordan, and Charles, and so on, and a whole bunch of others. Quite a few sort of friends on Facebook, and I don't realise who they are and what age they are on Facebook until you're having to talk to them about something specific, and you check the page or something like that, and you realise that, you know, they were born in 1990 something, you know, 1990 something, and you go, right, I'm getting that. Because obviously there's a crowd in London. Well, London's always managed to generate groupings of people coming through after a time when Northern Soul's popularity seemed to have, you know, waned, kind of thing. London has a crowd itself now, but as I said, your crowd up there in Lancashire at the time was a breath of fresh air, really.
There are just like pockets of young people, aren't they? But right, for now, I just want to go back to you and from the start. Yeah. So tell me your first ever soul event. Where was it and where did you go?
My first soul event as such would have been sort of 1970, end of 69, 1970. And I think I'm right, probably 1970, Root and Jenny Jackson were playing in Skipton. I mean, you used to have loads of touring groups then. And but Root and Jenny Jackson, they seemed the most, what, Root and Jenny Jackson, you know, over from New York or whatever. Turned out, I think Root and Jenny Jackson, one was from Oldham and the other one was from Leeds, you know, but, you know, they had a couple of records out on Beacon label at the time, you know, good records as well. And I went to see them live at Skipton Town Hall, and I just thought they were so exotic. I thought they were from America, you know, but they weren't. They were about 25 miles away. And so I went to see them. So that would probably be my first sort of soul event. But it wasn't really a soul event. It was an event with, you know, it was a Saturday night disco at Clifford Hall in Skipton, which is a sprung dance floor above a pub. Very big venue, actually. And so I went there. But all-nighter-wise, it would have been Leeds Central in 1973. Only by accident, really, because we were waiting to get. I think we were going down London to watch Leeds, and it was a 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning football special, because the trains used to take a lot longer than 4 or 5 hours. So we got over to Leeds on the last train out of Skipton. Me and a mate then used to go to football with, and then so we're hanging about for 4 or 5 hours waiting to get the football special in the early hours of the morning down to London, and so we ended up just, you know, messing about around Leeds as you do as young kids or boot boys at the time or whatever. And anyway, so the centre was on, I forget the name of the street now. So we actually paid our 10 bob or whatever it was and went in there for a few hours. That was by accident, really. And but you know, I felt ridiculously dressed because I had boots on and things like that, probably Skinners at the time, and looked like we, you know, like we looked, and nothing like anybody else looked who was inside, you know. So
what did everyone else look like? So you must have really stood out.
Their hair was longer then. We all had longer hair. A lot of the lads had really good the unfortunate term of ragheads, which were just sort of very short on top and very long at the back and sides, you know. The girls had roughly the same cut as well, which later on through the skinhead revival got absolutely bastardized as a haircut with girls. But it was just almost, you know, short on top and just these dangly bits at the side. But then, you know, the lads with that cut was just about, you know, sort of an inch long on top, but really long at the back. And some had it bleached, sort of bleached streaks, and one lad had pink, another had sort of blonde streaks, and they had wider pants on and blazers, wider trousers, and blazers and things, and looked smart, looked cool, you know, looked cool. The scene was always cool, and the girls were all drop dead, you know, and looked sharp and could dance, and it was just like, whoa, you know, this is great. You know, that would be the first all-nighter, but that was by accident, you know. I went back once later, the year after, 74, and then started to go to Wigan properly, sort of probably early 74-ish, something like that. When I decided I didn't want to, you know, I wasn't going to watch football any longer. I couldn't see I couldn't balance the two. I know a lot of people did, of going to football, getting involved in a bit of argy-bargy and things, and going to an all-nighter, but an entirely different ethos, but exactly the same people there. You know, the parts of the same gangs who you might have been scrapping with during the day at a football match in Wolverhampton or Stoke or whatever, you know. And then but a group of the lads from their gangs or their fans would be the ones going to the all-nighter as well. You know, so that change in the whole sort of aggression, you know, to palliness and everything else was something I couldn't balance. So I stopped going to watching the football the moment I started to go to all-nighters properly.
So how old was you when you started going to all-nighters? Because when you was 14,
Properly
you wasn't
16.
ready.
Properly 16. There's a lot of used to knock around with us, Charlotte, back in the mid early 70s from Skipton, and I knew him anyway when he a lot younger. But he was 12 when he went to Wigan. He knocked around with us as well. He was 12, 13. Muckers, his name was. He still only looks about 12 or 13 now.
Myself and Jordan, we was only 16 going to all-nighters. Jordan's a little bit younger than I am, but we was only kids when we were going there. So it's crazy. It's like, you know, 16-year-olds now and nowadays, like you wouldn't see that at all. Like it's crazy, isn't it?
You didn't, but there was a lot of, I mean, growing up in that period, girls particularly had awful lot more freedom, and they were doing things, an awful lot of things that were well underage, you know, to do, you know, like pubs, going out to clubs, because, you know, slap on a bit of makeup, you know, and a 13-year-old can look 18 really quickly, a girl, you know, particularly slightly developed. And so girls were up to a lot more then than they are nowadays. Everything's scrutinised now, and you've got all sorts of different things looking over people's shoulders. Nobody has the freedoms that we had then, and none of it is their fault particularly. It's all the parents' fault, you know, and the society's fault. But I mean, there was just loads of, everybody's underage doing anything really at the time. I think to get into all-nighters, you should have been 18, something like that. So. And there were loads of 14, 15-year-olds.
And let's talk about that journey to Wigan and your first time experiencing it.
Yeah, well, the first time is a bit difficult to remember because I worked it out that I went to the casino over 300 times for the Saturday night. And I know it's crazy, but it ran for 8 years. So, you know, so it's, when you think about it, it's not that difficult. Initially we used to go by bus. We used to get a bus from Skipton to Preston, hang about in Preston, and then get a bus through to Wigan. And then around that time as well, another bunch of lads from Skipton took to should we just say borrowing cars, you know, out of the garage, brand new ones. And then if we were hitching, kind of thing, we get picked up by a bunch of lads, you know, who we knew were mates anyway. They were a bit older than us and a bit older than me. And then so you'd be jumping in a posh Granada or something like that. And one time we parked up. We parked up on the you got the casino up in front of you. You got the hill with the car parks going down, the diagonal car park. At the bottom of that, I think there's a Volvo garage or a Volkswagen garage, a retailer, a second-hand car retailer as well. So we parked our car this one night in there. So I won't say forecourt, because it wasn't a big posh new garage, you know, as they became, you know, like on the American ideal. It was like, you know, just a hut and, you know, a couple of buildings and then tarmac and things. So we just slotted our car in there. Anyway, came out of the casino in the morning and came out of Wigan in the morning, and we're going to go to Burnley to hang about there and wait for Rosary to open to the All Dayer. And as I'm walking down the hill, I looked at the car, which was in the car park, in this garage forecourt kind of thing. And I looked at it, and then our number plate of our car said Granada. It was a display number plate, not an on-road number plate.
How did you get away with that?
I know. Well, I was just a passenger, so I mean, you know, so I was nothing to do with the borrowing of the vehicle, but it was hilarious, really. It's like, all right, it just said Granada, and I think it got left in Burnley But I think those lads got caught, should we say, at some point, because they were doing the same thing every week.
It's just
no names. Well,
you guys back then, you were so obsessive to the point that you was stealing, you were hitchhiking. Like, why was young people so obsessed with Northern Soul? What was it that made you so obsessive to the point that you're going to Wigan 300 times in a few years?
Well, it was obviously the music, the atmosphere, and the scene itself. It was all-nighters. It was slightly illicit. It was out of hours. There was this whole atmosphere of illegality and, late nights. It had everything that a youth culture should have. It should be nothing should be sort of branded. It should be organic, and the Northern Soul scene was organic, even though the Wigan Casino was run by the club as an all-nighter. But the people who went there didn't go there because, as I mentioned again, the brands or anything else. They went there because they wanted to go there, and out of that develops passion, and which is the big. Everybody's the same. Everybody's just crazy, about the scene. Then I think everybody gets crazy about it for a time. It's how long you can maintain that level of enthusiasm, and then it wasn't a chore. It wasn't not difficult. The music's fantastic. The atmosphere was great. Let's just say the stimulants were of a fine quality, and you get the combination of those things, and smart lads, sharp lads, the records, gorgeous girls, the records and everything else, and then you bring the collecting and things in, and starting to hoard records into it, and you've got all these different elements to attach yourself to. A mate of mine, Finch, who said that every group who went seemed to have the 5 or 6 lads, kind of thing, all used to knock about together roughly. And he said there'd be the one who's heavily into the records, 2 are heavily into dancing. He said 2 heavily into the gear, and he said, and there'd be a dope who only just went because his mates went.
So, which character was you? Which one of the friendship group was you?
I used to like dancing, but I was never dancing all night kind of thing. Very, very occasionally. But in those times, I was in the record bar, so I was definitely the record man. I was mad on the record. The gear side of things was almost, a little bit secondary kind of thing. And the dancing was just part and parcel. But no, it was the records for me very, very quickly.
Is that when you started collecting records?
No, I was already buying records then. It's if you didn't have much money as a kid, and if you're out sort of trying to find lead, things like that, and copper to trade in for money for clothes and things like that. Although my mother was very generous, buying records, you have to balance whatever with clothes, anything that you wanted. You have to balance what you couldn't have against what you could have. And so you could accumulate records to a certain extent, and girlfriends might buy you a record as a present, that type of thing. But I was already trying to buy records and find records in the odd junk shops. So I already had a few, and then just started to accumulate passionately, more and more and more and more, which was relatively simple at the time, because you had all the junk shops. Second-hand record shops then were prevalent everywhere. Even your local record shop. I got loads out of the shelves of my local record shop, loads of stuff, in-demand stuff, rare records that was still in stock there. Still there. All sorts of stuff about my local record shop. 2 copies of Panic, right out in the Delrons, which is like the biggest record in the country, just straight off the shelf of a local record shop. And you could still do that, but you just had to put the time in. You had to put the time in, and go. I go off to Bradford or Burnley or whatever, and just do the record shops, or the second-hand record stores, and you'd find stuff. And as well as that, the bootlegs were massively prevalent then. Pressings, illegal pressings for anybody listening. Legal pressings of record were absolutely enormous at the time, so you could get your hands on an awful lot of records very, very quickly. getting the money together to actually buy them was a problem.
So when was your first DJ spot? When did you say, right, I've got enough good records, I'm going to DJ now?
Well, no, it didn't work like that because I was running. I was a mobile DJ from Bean just before I was 16, and so we had a mobile unit which would use for parties, all sorts, so across the board music, weddings, bar mitzvahs, that kind of thing, christenings, and that used to troll, that around the Dales and things, and later on, I started off with one chap, doing it with one chap called Butch, but not the same Butch, and then he lost interest very, very quickly. And then so I started with another Northern Soul mate of mine, became a really big mate from Barnolds at Pete Hickson. And so me and Pete were doing the mobiles, and we got very, very, very good at it. And what we used to do, we'd be buying all the soul releases every week from our local record shop, and then they would lend us the pop. They would lend us the top 20. So, we'd just say, we'd be buying that in soul records, because soul records are coming out every week, and disco and things, because you're talking sort of 74-ish. And so we'd be buying loads of those just on order, so you'd be pre-ordering things that you'd never heard because you knew the artist and things. So you're accumulating records for yourself, and all the time, because in that record shop, they knew what you're doing, and they just lend us the other records and put them back on the shelves after the weekend and before the next weekend, when we might be out DJing on Friday and Saturday night, earlier, and they'd lend us next week's top 20 or whatever we wanted out of the top 20, stuff that we didn't want to buy, but we were still spending a lot of money there, or reasonable money. So, so me and Pete, that's how I sort of learned how to DJ, and sort of MCs we used to do parties when we used to do games and things like that, and with toilet rolls and boiled eggs up and down trouser legs and all that kind of stuff, which weren't supposed to be boiled eggs. So we're doing all that. So I knew how to DJ, and I knew how to present and things. So what happened then was we'd be doing all the mobiles and parties. We used to do the parties for people on the scene. This is a bit advancing it a little bit further to the 70s. People would book us to do their birthday party or on the scene, so that'd be all Northern. That's all the time we're buying Northern, and they wouldn't be the sort of the mainstream stuff. But when we're doing the mainstream for the normal general public, we're playing an awful lot of soul. We do the oldest thing will be all Motown, and there's some any bit of Northern that was in the charts at the time, so you could so you were playing a lot of soul records even at a general party. But then we would do the actual birthday parties and things for people on the scene around sort of Skipton, going right over to Clitheroe and Accrington, Blackburn, and places like that. So we sort of DJ on the scene without DJing at our own club or anything. And then later on, me and Pete got off the residency at the Spinning Jenny in Accrington. And so we did that, and that was obviously a really good Northern Soul night. So that's how I was playing a lot of Emmy discs as well at the time, and I'm playing and already breaking a few of my own things. So I'm very quick. But as far as learning to DJ, I've done all that, and I knew how to do it before I ever DJ an all-nighter.
No, I think that's really good. Was that your income, that your regular income, that was your source of work during that time?
It got ridiculous really at the time, because at one point we were that busy with the mobiles. I had a 9-to-5 job in retail, a very, very posh department store in Skipton called Legard and Wynn, and then I'd also be doing, by that time, a nightclub in my town. We had a residency there. We also had the mobiles out on the road. And I was also DJing records and going to Wigan. I couldn't spell my own name come Monday or Tuesday. I was that tired. I was missing that much sleep, and it just went, so everything. We made money on the mobiles for sure, because we started to sub it out. We're that busy. We have 3 units on the road, because I tell you why we used to hire spare rigs, as they call them now, from a company called SAI, Sound Advice Installation, which is in Chorley. and who built equipment, and we used to buy off them. Their equipment was fantastic. You could, nuclear bomb could drop on it and it was still there, and we had bits of our own. But then we used to hire other DJs to do things for us and sub parties out and jobs out. And so we're mad busy, sort of in the sort of later 70s, sort of 77, something like that, 78, really, really busy on that. So sort of two incomes, which allowed me to buy, which all went on record.
That's pretty good then, to be able to have two sources of income coming in. So
Yeah.
When was your first big spot, like your big DJ spot that like kind of really showcased the start of your Northern Soul DJ career?
With DJing locally and things and doing all the parties and stuff, and I was well known. I was the chap who was always collecting the obscure. I was always collecting the unknowns. I was asking people if they got any unknown stuff. And so whilst, in the record bar, people would come up to you, I've got, this guy? No, I don't know it. And then they'd lend you it. And then, then if it was unknown, it had no value, Charlie. It had no value at all. £2 max. And because I was always chasing information, people who I knew were big collectors, Steve Bradley, who discovered that near records, Rod Shard as well later, and stuff, Johnny Mack, John McRae, but loads of the normal collector lads who weren't as old as the lads I just mentioned as well would just, if they found anything which is unknown, or they thought was unknown, they'd ask me, and then I'd get given stuff as well. They'd give you, that's really good, guy, you have that. What do you want for it? No, it's okay, take it. And so so I was known as a DJ. I was also known as a DJ who was playing. Some of the little soul nights where the guest spots we around Burnley, Accrington, when we're doing the Accrington Spinning Jenny, and occasionally DJ the Accrington Old Band Club, but more the parties that went on there. That was a great Friday night soul night at the Accrington Old Band Club. Absolutely superb. Fantastic DJs. Ginger was on there then, Andy Ryden, who died very young, Dave Taylor, Phil Duckworth. And everybody was playing. It was like one of the main nights of the weekend for us. If you had to balance the two, some nights I said, well, if I'd had to pin me down, I might have said I'd rather go to Accrington or Bank Club on a Friday night and go to Wigan on a Saturday. If I'd been pinned down, a few times, not week after week, but it was that for the soul night. And anyway, so it'd be after Wigan had closed, and. Because what had happened was I was tipped to DJ at Wigan, and that even got in that little magazine they ran, the casino ran, called Northern Noise, I think it was, a little magazine, sort of half-day, fourth-day. And I was tipped to be getting a guest spot there, which never happened. Seemingly somebody put the kibosh on that, but I've never had, but seemingly did. Anyway, so when Wigan Tiffs opened, it was either Wigan Tiffs when there was still the death throes of the casino was still going on, with all those ridiculous nights they did afterwards. This last night after last night after last night at the casino. It was either then or shortly after the casino had finished properly that I got a spot at Wigan Tiffs that night. Richard would have been on. I'm not sure if Richard was running it. Richard Serling, but John Vincent was on. So it's a really strong lineup. Anyway, I got a spot on there and I smashed it. It was really, really my first record. It was exclusive at the time. It was Google Investigator, which Mike Vickers on the Brink. I covered up as Matt Parsons, All-Star Google Investigator, you see, and I played that first record, and the dance floor just went zoom because it was that well known off the sets and things, and it was almost a big record without ever getting played anywhere before. And so when I introduced that, came on, the old dance floors went absolutely crazy. People dancing over, jumping over furniture to get on the floor. And I'm not exaggerating. A mate of mine, Carl Edmondson from Skipton, was on and off the scene because he was in the army for a bit as well. He said he was sat down. He said he heard the intro. He said I went like that to jump up. He said somebody on the highest seating behind me said leapt over my head. He said to get on the floor. He said it just went mental. And so and from there sprang loads of other little things, and we had the big thing going down later with the 60s Mafia and this whole push to continue to play new records and not go down the oldies and modern route and things.
Tell me a little bit more about the 60s Mafia, because I know you was highly involved in that.
It was terminology given to a group of us. I mean, towards the end of the casino, really, the emphasis was getting strongly on modern soul, and a lot of it wasn't, I mean, I played a record called Squeeze Your Sherm. I mean, it was absolutely dire disco, but that's just always my example. When anybody says, yeah, modern's in, Squeeze Your Sherm, fuck off. Kind of, it's a little bit that. And so there's two crowds. There's a crowd for that and against it. And at the against it, sort of the 60s people, half of those would have been oldies people. And then there's this group of us kind of thing who was strongly pushing, constantly pushing the finding and playing and programming of newer 60s things, which the Northern scene's all about. And so it sort of developed, and I was sort of one of the spokespeople for that group of people, which included Finchy. I mean, Dave Withers and Rod Shard, like the DJs for that group. There was, Dave Malloy, who you know well, and Gaz Kellett were all involved with that. I mentioned Finchy, my mate, Rob Marriott, and there's loads of people I'm forgetting to mention as well. Gilly, and so there's a whole bunch of us from different areas who are all pushing the same thing. And it was Bernie Golding termed it. He came up with the 60s Mafia, because we all started to, dress became important again, a certain amount of style and things, and not baggy pants and badges, and it became a little bit of a small movement within the scene, but quite. Obviously Butch and Tim were part of it, Tim Asheben, as well. But an awful lot of people whose names you're familiar with were part of that as well. And I was just at sort of the forefront, really, of it, and very, very vocal at the time, which most of them like me, of course. Yeah.
You honestly name dropped some seriously cool old school boys there. So I'm, 60s Mafia all the way. I totally agree with it. So what was next?
Well, obviously, I should mention somebody as well. I didn't in that Dean, but Dean was younger then as well. Dean was so he was the sort of the younger lad at the time out of that. But Dean was always massively into his records and stuff, and for a very young age. But him and that bunch of lads out of Newark area as well. So so you had all this Dean and Bob and all this kind of stuff, Bob the Suit, and it was a movement within the movement within a movement, but it was almost like a crusade, Charlotte.
Yeah, I like that. And you're talking about Dean Anderson there, aren't you?
Yeah. Sorry,
the man who found the Fountain of Youth.
There's no shadows on Dean's face. He's got the wrinkles. You look at him. He's got the wrinkles. He looks old, but you just can't see it because he's black. And it's a really unfair advantage.
Oh, brilliant. Right. So from there, we was at Wigan Tiffs. Where are we moving on to next? What was the big thing next?
By that time, I moved to Derby anyway, a while before that. And I was doing any of the things down in Derby. And Derby had its own sort of modern crowd and its 60s crowd and its oldest crowd within that. But I used to DJ a few things there. And then we used to run our own soul night in Derby at a place called the Meadows, which was by the old stock cattle market in Derby, and get guests on there. So me and Finchy, Tim Finch ran that, and that was good. That was really up front. And I can't remember where I did. Whilst I did DJ a few all-nighters here and there, I wasn't resident at any, until Stafford came along. Really. But I was DJing a lot. But here, in Peterborough, DJ down at Fleet at Peterborough for Ken Cox. He sort of changed the format. That was very much an oldies venue. And Brian Ray, who's a big supporter of what we were trying to do at the time, lovely bloke, Brian. I'm very massively knowledgeable and great company. Great company, likes a good night out of Brian. So Brian got Ken Cox to change sort of the DJ lineup at the Fleet all nighters in Peterborough. And so we DJ myself, Dave Withers, and Gary Rushbrook DJ there together and I think 3 all-nighters on the trot. It didn't go down that well, you know, with the mainstay of that crowd there, but it went down well with enough, because that's how I met Keb and things like that at that event, and out of that sprang a whole lot of different things as well. But that was, I mean, we were strong. I think my whole spot then was sort of 50% exclusives, you know. So and then 50% other people's records, you know, other people's big records, you know, at the time. That was the mid-90s, or Danny Owens or whatever. But the other 50% of it was just purely, you know, I was the only one playing as well. And bear in mind, Kev Draper, who was always a big supporter of that. Kev Draper was sort of resident DJ there. He's another great lad, Kev. Good fun as well.
Yeah, he's a fantastic DJ. We're good friends with Kev Draper, and during lockdown we're sorely missing him, and Denise Draper as well. So you mentioned Stafford. Let's talk about Stafford. When did you start going there?
When it opened, you know, which don't ask me when. You have to check. I can't remember. When did it open? Stafford, 83, was it? I don't know. But I mean, Dave Thorley and Keith Minshall were running it, and they just, I mean, to be quite honest, it didn't start like it ended up at all. Dave was a lot more keen, although I might suggest different now. Lovely bloke, Dave. I've known him for years, but he was, you know, really keen on booking just the old brigade, you know, Richard, Sam, and blah 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 blah, which is a bit of a yawn, you see. To be quite honest, by that time. You know, they weren't that interested, and certainly weren't interested in what we wanted to do. They're much more interested in playing modern, Rich and Sam. And Dave Withers was DJing around then as well, so we used to follow Dave quite a bit. And so it was when there's a lot of pressure put on Dave. Dave thought at the time to book me and Keb as well. As part of the whole setup at the top of the world, and that's how it came about. Is people giving Dave lots of earache, but I knew him anyway. I knew what we were about, kind of thing. But I think he liked, because Dave. I mean, Dave's into all cross section of soul, of which I am these days. But you know, he's well into his modern and things like that, and he quite liked having, you know, sort of Rich and Sam doing their modern thing and being sort of big established DJs and so on. There, so I think they're quite like that. Maybe without all that pressure, we'll just continue down that route. And but anyway, he didn't. And I think Richard sort of pulled out anyway. I don't know the history behind that, but certainly me and Kev became the residents there. And after that, you know, it just all went mental.
So you and Kev had a little bit of like fun rivalry.
Yeah. The rivalry is that I'm fantastic and he's massively overrated. You know, it can take. You know, I mean, I'll tell you what. It's a bit of a limelight on a roof. Kev would use his grandmother's stepping stone to grab it. You know? So anyway, but I'm just a very, very good DJ, and Kev's just. You know,
there's an incredible there's an incredible clip tape that Chris Harvey donated to the Soul Archive, and it is I think Kev's on first and then you're on after, and you can see that rivalry, and in it he said, "Thanks Kev for playing all my records, here's something you don't know," or something like that. We
sort of revived that whole thing about the excitement of going out a weekend. You cannot miss going anywhere. You cannot miss hearing my spot or Kev's spot, because we're turning over records. You know, if you didn't go, and it became genuinely massively underground, exciting. The scene had shrunk then from the Wigan days. I mean, they're all nighters going up, Morecambe was running and things like that, but they're oldest generators, you know. What we were doing, we're putting together, and it had an awful lot of support. I mean, its crowd was only probably, I mean, the whole crowd at Stafford was probably only sort of 300, you know, kind of situation. But at a weekend, everywhere, wherever we were DJing, 100 of those people turn up wherever else you were DJing over the weekend. And it was just, whenever we were going to Scotland and running a coach with the minibus and everything else up there and things. And Stafford sort of reinvented Northern Soul in the spirit it originally started, I believe. And it was genuinely incredibly exciting. It certainly was for us because a lot of us, there's that 60s Mafia crowd and things we call it. This is what we wanted. This is what we've been pushing for. The records and this closeness and knit unit of all your mates who are like-minded and wild. And I haven't mentioned during this yet, Pete Lawson, God rest his soul. And Pete was big in all the things that I should have mentioned him earlier. The record bar, the 60s Mafia and everything. I should have mentioned Pete there as well. But so we had all this big crowd. I said big crowd, it's like 50 of us kind of thing. We were travelling everywhere all the time. And it was just, and these are all mates that you'd sort of come of age with to the casino and the scene, the scene at the time as well. So it was excitement. It was absolutely bubbled every weekend. And bookings were coming thick and fast. I might be DJing 4 times over a weekend. And Stafford, where you were breaking the records. And it's such a good crowd, because it was really a collector's crowd as well, but with loads and loads of dancers. You got, Stuart Wraith really well. And Stuart and Penny were about everywhere. And they were I should have mentioned them earlier. It's difficult to give pull them out of the air again. So you had all these, the Preston Cybermen were there with Billy and everything, and Gaz and their mental, mental antics. And it was really, really, I can't emphasize how good it was. People, might say, because they weren't there, but they wish they were. It is. But it was one of those, you had to put a shift in. You had to put the effort in. Like when you started going to all night, as I mentioned, when Wigan Oldies started and people drifted off the scene then, going once a month, and just became total just part-timers, which isn't the Northern Soul scene at all. And what happened then during the 80s period and things, we sort of re-instigated that whole ethos. Everybody out all weekend, every weekend. And sort of wild. It really was wild. Musically, super, super exciting, brilliant. It was.
I can feel your heart kind of being really full but hurting at the same time, because you're really looking back on those memories.
Right.
And you know what? There's this question that that comes up, especially with the young people, and we say, if you had the time machine, what venue would you go back to? And most people would say casino. I'll go back there. And I know for myself, probably Charles, Aaron, they'd all say Stafford. We'd go to Stafford. So much for shedding a little bit more light on that and making me more jealous.
There was a young crowd at Stafford as well, Charlotte. All those young lads coming up. Talking about Ion, Matthew, Mark. I just mentioned those sort of 3, but there was loads and girls as well. There's probably about 20 odd out of that young crowd as well, which hit Stafford at the right time, and they were full of enthusiasm. And I met them once when me and Kev were DJing at the Big Root on Greek Street in London one night, and I realised there's something about them, because they're all hovering around the decks with little notebooks, taking notes of what you're playing, things like that. And that'd be about 83. And they were just off the mod scene then, just young kids. So it had all that. It had youth. It had all the experience, the old boys. It had the wild lads, and it had all the record knowledge was there as well, at Stafford. The record bar was just full of, all the right people.
Just to finish off the Stafford story, let's just talk about your most favourable, highlighted memory of that place.
Very few, and very, very few negatives with Stafford. Very few indeed. Let me say, I remember when I played, for the first record I played there was Hook, Line and Sinker. And I bought that. And I bought it off Dave Raystrick, who I got a lot of records off over the years. He discovered an awful lot, did Dave. And I got an awful lot off him, as a lot of other people did as well. And we'd done the Meadows, the Soul Night, before our first night was DJ at Stafford. And Dave had come to the Meadows, and he was DJ at the Meadows with us in Derby. And he played that in his spot. And I needed a record. I needed a spot opener. I needed something high impact, something really crunchy, I had lots of other records, but you need records. You've got to play records right. It's not in fact great records. You've got to put them together correctly. And so I needed something. I was like, oh, what's that? So I went, oh, what's that? And I'm not sure if you had it covered up or not. Anyway, so we did a quick deal for it, and I covered it up in the car over to Stafford, covered it as Bobby Lee and the Crash Sound, because it was by Roy Wright, who had a record out on Crash record label as well. And so I put Bobby Lee and the Crash Sound, Bobby Lee was the producer or writer. And then so that, and when he introduced that, it was, I was going to go straight, I'll tell you a little story now. I was going to go straight that night. So I didn't want to mess up or anything. I wanted to be totally natural. And anyway, Dave Thorley, I'm in there. First of all, he wouldn't give me the spot I wanted. I wanted like the 3 o'clock, not 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock spot, Peach. The spot. That's what I wanted. And I'd argue, I justified it, and I did, but he wouldn't give me it. So I was going to give him the 5 o'clock spot, I think it was, which is a bit, graveyard shift-ish, but not really, but it is, Anyway, so so I thought, I'll have some gear. So anyway, somebody has some Dexedrine. Anyway, so in back of the record box. And anyway, so I dropped these decks, about 14 of them, and then Dave comes up to me after about 20 minutes, just when your hair started to stand on end, kind of thing. He said, I've shifted your spot. You're on in 5 minutes. So when I get up there, starts queuing the record, queuing the record up it's there. Just as I'm picking the mic up, the record's finishing, I just went poof, like that. I just went bang, and I couldn't keep my feet on the ground, and it just went, and then just bang, and it just came in, and it was just like, and my hair was just like, it was absolutely superb. I had to hang on to the decks because my feet were going to take off behind me. It was absolutely superb.
Do you know what? I've got goosebumps. I have actually got goosebumps. That is just, I love it. I love stories like this, and these are the stories that we really, really want to hear more of the Soul Archive. So, moving on from Stafford, I think we move on to Tony's Empress Ballroom. Right. Am I right?
Yeah.
Right. Am I right saying that you co-promoted that with Ion? Yeah.
Ion the Greek. Just to give you a little bit of background, Ion and Tony Smith had a soul nights in London, small events, and they had little Soul Town, what they call Soul Town Soul Club. So it was their moniker, really, their club. And we were looking for venues, me and Ion in particular. And Ion had sent just a circular around to he'd gone through not websites. He got lists from councils in our target towns of their dance halls, municipal halls, and then just sent out a circular introducing, say, we're looking for this, Bob, I want to run this type of event. And it was Tony's who was on their licensing list. Ballroom, we got back in touch, Harry Barron there, lovely chap. So Harry got in touch with Ion, and that's when we went to look at the venue. And then we just went, this should be good. And it was perfect. And it was just superb. That first night there was just a rammer. I mean, there's a great story about, I wasn't behind the, unfortunately, I did actually take the money, which I always kick myself for. I should never have been on the door like that. But before we opened up, Ion did first spot at Blackburn. And anyway, that night, the opening night, across the road was a pub, I think called the Red Lion or something like that, or Coaching Horses, and had a coaching door. And I'd gone out through the door, told the bouncers to keep it closed until bang on this time. And, whatever, to midnight. Keep the doors closed to midnight and then open. So I didn't want any brush with the law or anything like that. So I had enough problems later on with the law there. And then so I went out and I'm looking at the queue and I'm stood there. And anyway, I didn't realize the time, and it was midnight. And at midnight I'd come and Ion introduced the first record, and it was the Nature Boys, Watch Yourself. And it starts off with a heavy bass, boom, 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 like a double bass. And he put that up. And I just watched, there's a queue running right round the street, about 200 or 300 people like that. And I just heard it, almost like a double bass throbbing through the walls. like boom, 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 and the queue just went a foot higher. The whole thing's a ripple just went down the queue, down the road, and it just went everywhere. His shoulders went up like that. It was absolutely a moment, and you had to be across the street to see it, and they saw it as if everybody grown a foot, because everybody went like that. You know, everybody's talking or whatever, you know, waiting to get in, and then boom, 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 boom. And then the whole queue just went sort of ripple like a wave going down as people heard the music, and the doors opened, and I had to dash across the road because I should have been behind me, you know, the till kind of thing. But Margaret was my girlfriend.
Wow, that is. Oh. Honestly, you're killing me. Sorry, just to interrupt. Can you flick the big light on? I can't see you.
Oh, yeah. One moment, yeah. That better.
That is much better.
Yeah.
Okay, so talk about Tony's Empress Ballroom. Describe the venue, because I'd love to know more.
Oh, well, I think, did you go and have a look at it with Jordan? When he took some photos there.
Yeah, so we went down. Yeah, I think we went to the entrance of it. We didn't go in the venue. I think it's shut down. Yeah, so I know. I'm just rambling.
Yeah, no. Jordan took some photos out of Fish Island, which were a bit deceiving. But I mean, as a venue, yeah, that wonderful sort of neon entrance. You know, just a sink like double doorway entrance like that stone staircase with a half landing, and then up to the top. To landing in, then through double doors into a ballroom, and then another flight of stairs going up. And that ballroom it wasn't a square rectangular, sort of angles to it, sort of rectangles but cut off, and a small stage in the corner as well, a very small stage in the corner, about 3 foot off the ground. And but you know, that dance floor was big. It's an Empress dance floor, you know, so it's high quality dance floor. And it had little leaded lights around the walls and things like that. And all the furniture was Lloyd Loom, or, you know, was original furniture from the 30s. And it was absolutely great. I've got some couple of great stories from that. Really good.
And I'd really, really love to hear them. Who was DJing there, first of all? Just describe it, you know.
The DJ, Tony's New Empress Ballroom, the first all-nighters there, that first group, because we got closed down by the police one time, not our fault actually, and had to fight a court case to get back reopened, or a court case with the licensing people as well. They were very supportive, it turned out. And but the DJ lineup at Blackburn then was the best ever for any all-nighter. It was, everybody was on their game. I mean, you had Butch, Keb, Jimmy Wensiora, Rob Marriott, me, Ion, and all these various guests, all these DJ guests, and Tony and things like that. Tony Smith did it as well. So we had this great collective of all the DJs who were all on form at the time. I was possibly not on quite as big a form and been at Stafford, but when I listen to live tapes now, I think, yeah, God, that's a good spot. You know, kind of thing, the odd live tape that crops up now and again. But it was just musically superb. You know, as I say, the Jimmy Wensiora with all the big sort of LA records and things like that that I got off Dave Ray Street. You know, Rob Marriott, Butch was just, you know, absolutely with you know, the Delarks, you know, Diane Lewis. The list just went on and on and on, and every DJ had their own exclusives as well, and it was really good. Unfortunately, Sean Gibbons, the arsehole, opened up just up the road. Says it all. Which clashed, and ultimately it was him running doors without membership cards, which got us closed down as well. So we had problems. But because of that starting up just up the road. But yeah, there you go. I had 2 coppers coming one night. They're on the beat, and at the time they used to invite me in for a cup of tea. It's always good if you run all night to have a good relationship with the law that's on the street, not playing clothes lads. And so I used to invite them in for a cup of tea. They take their helmets off, you know, and get a cup of tea. And they said to me one night, these 2 coppers, they're only young, and said, we've just been in at town hall. The other one, they said, it's full of pissheads. They said, booze, and he said they were leaving at the time, my place, Tony's, and And they said the music here is so much better, than up the road.
That's
two
good.
couples music's so much better here than up the road.
So again, like we did with Stafford, I just want to talk about your favourite memories at Tony's. I was there.
This is right. Was this the first night or second night? I can't remember. It's absolutely rammed. It was rammed. And we had some quiet nights there, but this was a big rammer. And let's say it's this old building, everything's 1930s or whatever, 1920s, whatever. And they had some big drop fans, like the old-fashioned ones, like aeroplane blades, like this big ones, with a wingspan, sort of, 10 foot or 8 foot, something like that. And obviously the electrics there had never been rewired, this place. So the heat, it's dripping down, like at Wigan sometimes, it's dripping down, off the ceiling, all the perspiration, everything, the sweat and the steam and everything else. It's dripping down. People come, can you put the fans on? Can you put the fans on? And I went, I don't really trust it. I don't know anything about fans, So anyway, so it's got had this old wooden box on the wall with all the trip switches and everything. So I just went home there, click, 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 click. And about nine of these fans. And I watched them out on the stage and DJ at the time. And I'm watching and looking, and they start up like a little bit of moving. And they're all doing it, but they're all doing it sort of different times. And I'm looking at this and what the hell? And then, which I didn't realise about fans, and the reason they're on these drop stalks is they have to have movement. They have to move from side to side. Because if it's just a downward thrust of the fan, it'll pull the ceiling down. So they're made in a way that they go like this, side to side. They swing, which obviously for the stress, an engineer probably tell you exactly why, but for the stress on the ceiling is limited. So they're spinning like this, and by now they're going like turbine blades, all of them, and they're swinging like this. And I'm looking and going, I didn't realise about this swing. And I'm looking at that thinking, that's going to fall off, and it's swinging. And I just had this image in my head of like a whole dance floor of people being decapitated on the next record. Turn them off. So I turned them off. So anyway, what it was then, I thought, what can I do? But there's a little row of steps next to the stage which went to a fire door. I thought I'll open the fire door. So in between a record, they put a record on. So I went up, there's a push bar like this. It was so hot in there. It was so hot. So I went up the steps like that and just pushed the door like that open. And then, warm air and cold air don't hit each other. The cold air, the hot air tries to get out, the cold air comes in, it immediately turns to cloud. And I'm in this whirlpool of cloud like that and going, whoa, 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 whoa. I'm very, very wide awake at the time. I've got this whirlpool of cloud, just like zooming. I'm still going, whoa, this is great. And somebody down this little flight of stairs, and a few people, it was really busy. There's a few people gone there went, whoo, as I was studying this whirlpool of cloud, as the hot air's trying to get out, immediately turns to steam as the cold air's coming in, you see. So, yeah, so it's not musical, a memory. It's that. I never had the experience again, actually, but it was a great accident. It's like, I like it.
I can just imagine you with a cloud round you. That sounds great.
Yeah, it was like spinning around you, like you're in a hurricane.
Well, yeah, it's like a magic effect, isn't it? Moving on, I just wanted to talk about the footage that was filmed there. Just tell us a little bit about that.
There's two lots. There was the footage for the BBC. There's a footage for Pebble Mill, not Pebble Mill, Old Grey Whistle Test, and there's a footage for the BBC. So there's two lots of footage. It was Debbie Troops who got the BBC stuff out there to do the BBC for Great Manchester News, whatever it was. But it was the other was from the Whistle Test. Unfortunately, that night they filmed for Old Grey Whistle Test, the music programme, which used to be on late nights there on BBC. Unfortunately, I'd asked Paul Phillips at Echoes. I sent him new ad copy for the ads in Echoes, and he forgot to put the fact the cameras were there, kind of thing. So rather than being like a big, absolute, because the Northern Soul Scene, despite what it says, loves a television camera, on telly. kind of thing. It does, and it certainly did. Anyway, he didn't put that in the ad, so we had about 200 in, something like that, rather than 7, 2,500, which is about standard. 2.5, 300, something like that, standard at the time, rather than absolutely a total packer, which we should have had for that program. That just came about through the repo. I mean, bear in mind, Northern Soul had sort of dropped off the music media's radar, you see. And this was a sort of reintroduction to it before this hallelujah type situation where all these people never went to Wigan, who came back on the scene sort of in the 2000s, came back on the scene they were never on in the first place, kind of thing. So so there's a lot more media interest and from the press there at the time. And look, I mean, the clubs were going mental in London. There's a lot of underground stuff going on in London at the time as well. So the whole issue of youth culture was starting to become, let's say, an acceptable thing for the media to write about again. So there's a lot more interest. I used to get calls very regular from different news sort of streams or avenues at the time. Most had nothing to do with it. They just edit out the good stuff and put in what they, what some editor wanted rather than what the sub-editor or journalist wanted. So I stopped getting involved in that. But there was quite a bit of interest at the time from media.
Mm-hmm. And I bet it's so amazing to be able to just look back on it now and just because it's obviously documenting history as much. Because for me, I don't like being in front of a camera when it comes to dancing. I really don't. Proper dancing at a night, when you
No. I know exactly what you mean.
And so and I know there's a lot of talk about that from the casino footage about actually, like, although a lot of the the proper boys, the proper old school boys, didn't really appreciate being in front of the camera. It's quite...
definitely not. Yeah. They had the lights on, you see, that night at the casino as well. And they'd actually had a vote, though, whether to let the cameras in. Now, whether or not, I can't remember. I mean, I voted against it. I think it was show of hands. But I think the casino management wanted them in desperately. And the people who were there generally didn't want them in at all. And I was definitely a part of that party who didn't want them. And it didn't need that at all at the time. But
did they not need the cameras? The lights on for the Tony Empress footage?
I think we had the lights on a little bit for a little bit, but I think that's spots. I think they brought their own lighting, with just spots. And as I remember, I think there were spotlights and camera lights, camera with the lights. So we might have had the light. No, I don't think we did have the lights on. For it, actually. You'd have to have a look at the footage. I can't remember now, but it doesn't look like it on the footage.
We'll play it on here. Okay.
That's not my voice on. There's not my voice on that footage, actually, introducing Bud Harper.
Is it not?
Yeah. No, they mixed it wrong. And that's actually Jimmy's voice. It's me DJing. There's my voice earlier on to do with something else, I think, but on that bit, it shows me, I think, and the record shows me on the stage and the record playing Bud Harper, but the introduction voice is Jimmy Winsiora.
I bet you was fuming when you watched that back for the first time. You're like, that's not me.
Of course, DJ, I like Limelight, but not as much as Kev.
Okay, so last point about Tony's, the dancing style was pretty much it was quite a lot different to what it was at the casino. Just describe the dancing style there.
I don't know if there's that many different styles. You got the Cybermen, Preston crowd, moving the feet slightly, side to side, but nice and rhythmic and cool, kind of thing. With limited foot movement. You still had all the gymnastic types as well, and all the girls doing more side to side type stuff. So I couldn't spot anything different. So at the time, or certainly nothing that would spring to mind. But I mean, dancing finished, really great dancing finished by sort of maybe 1975, to be quite honest. All the great dancers have got off the scene. I mean, the dancers who you got now, the ones who are considered great. I mean, Kev's a great mover and a fantastic athlete, and always has been. but it makes everything he does look difficult, that only he can do it. You know, kind of the great dancers do that and make it look simple. And the great dancers never sweat. Or sweat, you know. I just remember, was it Booper? There's Beanie from Settle or Hellifield girl, fantastic dancer, cool, do tremendous stuff. She's got the Mecca most of the time. The lad called Booper, been around for years. I don't really know about to say hello to, but he was a big scene face at the time. He was a great dancer. There's a lad who I used to actually work behind the bar at the Burnley Cricket Club. His name I can't remember. On the Soul Nights there, he is a great dancer as well. Ex-girlfriend, my old friend Lois Felton, she could dance, but she was very young, in sort of the mid-70s, and she could dance. And there were lots of others, but a lot of those great stylish dancers, the lads who could dance on one foot, you know, and spin round just on one foot, do all the movements, and whilst wrapping the other leg behind the back of the knee and going down slowly in a crouch, and then whipping out the leg, and then coming back up with the leg straight and doing it slow or fast, you know. And now it was incredibly athletic kind of thing, but it's the type of thing, it didn't involve throwing yourself around, even though they could do that as well. But a lot of that style nature of dancing disappeared about that point. You know, I think if I'd been going to all-nighters, let's say 72 or something like 73, I reckon I'd have seen an awful lot of great dancers. I once saw a lad at the International Soul Festival at Leeds in Queen's Hall, and they had some little mobile dance floors there. It's an old tram shed, big live acts, Major Lance and JJ Barnes and Detroit Emeralds were on. Things like, there was a big 7,000 people in there, filthy place it was. But there's little mobile dance floors. I once saw a lad dance to a whole record on one foot, kind of thing, all the time. He's just spinning, just turning like this, and he's got this other foot as a counterbalance, and his foot's moving side to side and sort of moving patterns like this, but his other foot's just spinning on, you know, moving on the floor. And he's going round and up and down. He was cool as. I mean, it's absolutely superb style. He looks smart as well. I can picture him to this day, the yellow and white check Ben Sherman on short sleeve, and a pair of jeans, Skinners or whatever. I don't know. Can't remember exactly what, but he could dance. You know, the absolute style and cool and grace. Grace is a big thing. And grace, you know, there's a classic photo of the girl. They use it on an awful lot of the Northern Soul things and Wigan Casino. It's a girl in a floral print dress, maybe a drop waist dress, and she's dancing. She's got her arms like this. She's caught in a moment. You've seen that photo. She's great. You can see movement in the still. You can see what she's doing. You can see the look. Everything about it is style. It's smart, and as I say, it's grace as well. You just knew that she could dance. You know, she could dance. I mean, it's difficult to catch that with dancing in a still to give an impression of movement. And but that photo does, probably accidentally, because it's been shrunk down, I think, over the years to being just her and a little bit of a background, but to sort of originally from a bigger photo. But it's great. But there are lots of girls.
Brief, because I'm just a bit conscious of time. We've really enjoyed this conversation. We might have to do this in 2 parts, actually. So
Pleasure.
I just want to talk about a few characters on the scene. So maybe Pete Lawson or anyone, a character who truly defined the scene during that time.
Oh, yeah, you'd probably say Pete, actually. Some people might say me for my efforts, but I was the front of house kind of thing. And just about any of the lads who are around there, most of which I've mentioned. My apologies for anybody that I haven't mentioned, because I hate that when I miss people off. But I would probably say Pete. I've known Pete, and I have some great Pete stories as well. Here's a lad, there's a card, and I'd say Pete sort of personified that. I mean, he wasn't perfect, you know, at the time, but great geezer. Yeah, wild man in wild times. But he'd been around, you see. So he'd been around since sort of about 1973, or the last days of the torch, and so he knew his way about. And he particularly enjoyed that time, that period particularly as well. I mean, Steve Bradley, is the only person I think is still on the scene. He's in hospital at the moment, having a third hip operation. Strange that, 3 hips, because we've not only got 2. He's having to have one done again, a new one put in again. And Brad said, and he went to the Wheel, the Torch, the Mecca, Cats, everywhere in between, Wigan throughout, and his company enjoyed all the time. His record knowledge is phenomenal. He said the best point at all for him on the Northern Soul scene was that 80s period with Stafford. He just said it couldn't be beaten as a period, you know. He said it was just fantastic, and that coming from him, he'd been to everywhere, and he was a main man at the Wheel as well. You know, so yeah, and he was young then. Yeah, so that says something to me about there's something right about those times. But it was all the right people. All the right people were there.
It seems like it was like a recipe for perfection, really. With, you know, it seemed, I don't know, just everything had to happen at that time. And
yeah, it came together. It came together because we made it come together. It was a joint effort. You know, it was full on Northern Soul lifestyle, absolutely full on. And I was doing it full time then. I wasn't doing anything else, and everything's to do with the scene. I never made any money out of it particularly, but a damn good time, and got a living out of it for that period just. It all came together. All came together with the right people. I'll just repeat myself now. I'll just run off. Just keep repeating myself. Good times.
Good times, right? Okay, so let's just talk about what you're doing now, and then we'll finish up. So, tell me what you're doing now.
I'm in Cambodia. Because there's no work in England, and if I was a professional DJ, there's nowhere to DJ because everything's locked down. So I came out here. Normally, I try to work 6 months a year and then travel for 6 months a year. And this time just ended up when all the curtains were pulled down and the borders were closed. I was in Cambodia, which is my second home anyway, to a certain extent. And so I'm just hanging about here until anything changes back home. But what I enjoy these days particularly is myself and Tony Smith doing the radio show for Totally Wide Radio, and we do Rare Social once a month. I absolutely enjoy that because, as you know, I mean, you can tell by this, I do enjoy talking about records and about times and stories, of which I have a myriad, you know, hundreds and hundreds. The more than Gilly, not, you know, I can talk more than Gilly, which is difficult.
Absolutely.
So doing that radio show with Tony, who's a mind of information, he corrects me, sometimes correctly and sometimes not, on some things, but he's a really good lad to do these things with, and a big mate. So we're doing that with Tony is the scene, you know, for me is the biggest pleasure. I do very little DJ these days at clubs. What I do, I tend to enjoy. I did something for Pet a while ago, which was really good, over at West Midlands, and had a good crowd in there were interested in things I hadn't heard before rather than just mainstream. But it's like anything, if you can DJ, present stuff that people haven't heard before and think they have, you know, just the way you present it, position it, as well. So that was good. I think I did for Chris King was good at some time. That's a couple of years ago now. But most of all, I enjoy doing the radio. I'm boozing with mates, you know, like in London, you know, when we all meet up, you know, Kevin Cox, Keb, Tony, Ion, Marco, Gareth Sweeney, Dry Gareth. So I enjoy that as well, you know. So without being outside the club, all we do is sit together and talk records, you know, or scene business. And Butch quite often joins as well.
Oh wow, that's just...
So, you know, it's
like a reunion, isn't it? That's lovely.
Yeah, it is a mini one without actually being at a club and having really rough Monday and Tuesday. You know, so well, because if you're going to do it, you got to do it right. If you're going to go through all night, you've got to do it right.
I totally agree with that. Okay. So to round it up, I really appreciate this conversation.
I enjoyed it.
I generally felt like I went down memory lane with you, which is exactly what I hope the viewers have felt too. So we're just going to finish on a bit of a quick fire round. So first of all, your favourite ever record?
It'd have to be after everything, I think it's number one. It's out there. It's a million miles ahead of anything else. It's the Mellow Souls. We can make it a mellow. Butcher's Odell that's come up. Is just the Dogs Nads. They do not come better. They do. It's pure Northern Soul. It's the best record ever made.
Do you know what? I totally agree with you. Like, that's one of them that really pulls in your heartstrings when you're dancing to it, especially when the atmosphere is there.
It's northern. It's northern. Don't go any better.
Through and through. Yeah. So, next question. The record you hate the most, and I think you've actually already mentioned this.
Oh, there's too many. But the most irritating of all time for me is Wendy Renee Barbecue. You know, Dave Harrison is a lovely lad, kind of thing. I mean, I'd pay him because he used to play it as an oldie. Well, you know, and Dave was a popular oldies DJ, so he'd DJ, you know, all over the place. And if Dave was on, he played Wendy Renee. I couldn't get out of my head, you know.
I do get where you're coming from. It's a bit similar to salt and pepper, shake it. Yeah. That's one of them. Yeah, and I'm going to hear this all weekend now. But it's like, especially when you've been to a night and stuff, and then you're trying to get to sleep the day after, and then songs. I like barbecue, but songs like that, it gets.
It's not fair, just running about your head.
Yeah. It's not the song you want to listen to. So your favourite ever venue?
Different reasons for different venues, and the three that I've talked about would be Casino, for being there as a kid, for DJing Stafford, and for atmosphere and DJing would be the Crown Hotel in Scotland. And there's loads of others in between as well, all good. There's some poor places as well that I've done, but no, the Casino, the record bar there was a buzz. The people are just fantastic. The Stafford for DJ was just, for me, it was just the culmination of everything that we trying to pull together, came together well. And we did exactly what we wanted to do. We won that crusade, really. And then they said the Crown Hotel, which I mentioned earlier in Scotland, which they must have been about. But I know, because Matthew had been too young to go to Clouds. I know Dave used to go to Clouds occasionally up there, Richard and Carl. Those three.
Okay, next question. The DJ, your favourite ever DJ, one that, if you could follow a DJ, who would it be?
Different people for different times as well. And I termed Richard Saylor as an inspiration for a generation, which I thought was a really good catchphrase kind of thing when he did a thing for me when I was doing support nights for the play. Once upon a time in Wigan. He DJ'd that. That's how I introduced him. He was fantastic. When he was good, Richard was on form. He was fantastic. And all the records coming out of John Anderson and stuff. And he was just the right man for the right job at the right time. But, equally so. At one time, Levine was the Dogs Nads. Someone said Colin Curtis was the Dogs Nads. Everybody's had their time of being absolutely brilliant. And Pep, was another one. Absolutely great. Alan Rhodes was good at Wigan when Alan was sort of playing a lot of MED stuff, dub stuff, Soul Sam stuff, because Soul Sam was a DJ at Wigan then. A great night, one of the best ever nights at the casinos when Soul Sam did it for the first time. And he was a hero to quite a few. The chap who I love myself when I was good, kind of thing in that period. I was fantastic. I was the right man for the right time, like a lot of other people have been as well. I've loved doing Keb's done stuff, and kept stuff on the deep funk scene was absolutely pivotal for sort of world music to a certain extent. But for me, my favourite DJ is Butch, because he's done it consistently at a time. Not always at the best places that I've enjoyed, but he's been quality, and as well as that, he's a good mate. So my all-time favourite DJ I would have to say Butch out of that, but the other ones that I mentioned, and Richard for the 70s, for sure. Everybody's had the moments at different times. John Vincent was staggeringly good for a time. In his niche, sort of early casino, his spot was superb, a bit left field music as well.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really great answer. So, final and last question, your favorite ever memory on your whole journey of the soul scene. One memory, if say if it was the main chapter of your life, what is it?
But I don't know. And the fog is too many. Too many, and they'd have to compete with each other. And no, it should be unfair. I mean, playing Bobby Lee and the Crash Sound at Stafford, the opening record for the first night I DJ'd there, and the buzz, you know, kind of thing. It's just like, you know, I'm watching it when nobody heard it before, particularly, you know, kind of thing. And dance floors were mental now, you know, on the ceiling. The was a moment which we talked about. Too many. And I met some really, really good people whose company I enjoy to this day, whose company I treasure to this day as well. Outside, you know, so and get a buzz, and still get a buzz. You know, it's one of those nights you meet people with now, you know, let's say in the pub or something, and then you just like, boop, 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 and the beer's not having an effect because the adrenaline, you know, is all the endorphins are kicking because everything's perfect, you know, because you're with the right people. You know, it's, I mean, that's great. You know, I'd love to go back with all those people and 10 black bombers each, you know, to a night and do, you know, and do it right, you know, kind of thing. I mean, that's what I'd really like, you know. Yeah. I mean, some of the best times that I've had has been me and Dean Anderson driving to venues in his car, Dean driving, and just yak, and putting tapes.
You mentioned that in our chat, so maybe we could squeeze it and move this bit or leave it here, wherever. But let's just talk about one of your travelling moments with Dean Anderson.
I can't. There's all sorts of trouble. They'll kick him off air.
Okay, we'll leave it there. Hopefully you'll tell me those stories one time.
Lots of good travelling. I mean, and just great tales and great music. Dean is we're so much alike in the musical appreciation things and the periods of time as well. And I remember the first time I met Dean, him and Little Pete and a couple of other Newark lads were in the peanut machine corner at the casino, like 4 young black lads, you know, 3 or 4 young black lads. It was pretty unusual. I mean, 1 in 20 kids in there were black, which have 4 or 5, you know, sort of together, who were all young, all really young, in the corner record bar, you know, sort of looking a little bit out of place, you know, kind of thing. That's when I was talking to them then, it's the first night. And they're really nice and they're well into the records. And yeah, so that's how I met Dave. So I always see that. So, but he does actually look old now, you know. He does look old. Don't tell him that he is.
Okay, so yeah, let's wrap it up there. And just want to say,
thanks, Charlotte.
I just want to say a massive thank you for joining us today and supporting the Soul Archive and just being involved. It means a lot, and hearing your story.
It's a pleasure.
Incredible. Thank you very much. So we're going to wrap it up there. I just want to say once again, thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure.
Today and being involved. And thank you for everyone who's tuned in to this interview. And if you'd like to find more about the Soul Archive, just click the link below. Thank you so much and goodbye.
Cheers, Charlotte. See you later.
Bye.